Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Monday Q&A, so let's get into it. What is it about the 5x5 that gives the strength benefits a 3x10 does not? If the same hypertrophy is reached, and what is it that creates the strength disparity? I know Eric Helms went into a lot of detail on this. You guys can go look it up yourself on one of his peeling back and onion videos. You guys can find it yourself on the search engine, to where he discussed in detail explaining why 5x5 and 3x10 seem to produce very similar, if not identical, hypertrophy due to them having the exact same basic workload. So for hypertrophy purposes, they're relatively equal. However, we get into the other benefits, which means 3x10 might give slightly more strength stamina. It will get you out of the gym faster because it takes more time to do a 5x5, but the 5x5 will improve strength more. Well, why does it improve strength more? Because you're using a heavier weight. Because you can progress slightly quicker with micro-loading, and because of the fact that more sets, particularly with the heavier weight, 5 sets versus 3 sets, you get more first reps. And first reps tend to ingrain your neural efficiency most in terms of increasing strength in the very low rep range or maximum effort strength, because they ingrain the motor pattern for your first rep the most. And a lot of people don't want to admit that or come to terms with it, but outside of their hypertrophic potential, reps beyond the first or second rep, generally even the first rep, do not improve neural efficiency or neural adaptations to your strength towards your 1 rep maxes nearly anywhere near as much as the first rep does. That's the one that really ingrains the technique the most, and that's why high set training with lower reps tends to produce better strength gains on 1 rep maxes, largely not just because of the heavier loads, because the loads aren't that much difference, but outside of its hypertrophy potential, it's setting you up your first rep, and when you go to do a max, your first rep is going to be 1 rep. So it ingrains that better. So there's a couple of different factors there. All right, next question. Outside of sport-specific training, does HIIT cardio provide any health benefits that LIIS cardio doesn't? Yeah, there are definite some health benefits that it can provide. However, resistance training bridges the gap. Now, if someone was doing no resistance training, which I would never ever recommend for anybody whose goals are health, if health is your goals, you need to be weight training 2 to 3 times a week. I cannot stress that enough. But if for some reason a person wasn't weight training, HIIT cardio would be superior. It's that the LIIS cardio gives you a lot more endurance, and there's a lot more that HIIT cardio can do with VO2 max and things like that. But resistance training, particularly higher volume resistance training, bridges the gap tremendously there, and it overlaps with most of the health benefits you could get from HIIT outside of the sport-specific context. So in all honesty, someone could receive all the health benefits by just combining their resistance training with lower intensity cardio and still get an overall better range of health benefits than, say, if they just did HIIT. All right, next question. How do I get a girlfriend if I'm a skinny fat faggot? Dead serious. This is almost one for the Ask Jason channel, which I haven't been doing lately. If you have no personality, you have no money, those are the 2 things that are going to get you girls. Improving your physique can help, because if you achieve an extreme physique, it's going to help you a long way in picking up women who are attracted to the extreme physique. Think of it as like plumage on a peacock or a rooster. The bird world of plumage is the same with men and birds in that regard, if you can attract women by being different and outstanding in some way. But it only gets you a foot in the door unless that woman happens to have a fetish, and most women are not going to have a fetish for really buff guys. Some do, and they are out there, and those will throw themselves at you. And they don't care about your personality at that point. But for the others, it's just a little bit of plumage, and if you have a bad personality or you lack confidence, it's not going to get you anywhere. And by that same token, money, a lot of money will attract more women to you than the physique will, although it may not always be the type of woman you might want to be with. But ultimately, personality and confidence, if the training and the change in your physique gives you confidence, and that's great, but it sounds like you don't have any confidence, and I don't know how much the training will affect that. I would suggest you lose some fat, gain some muscle, and see if that affects your confidence, and that in turn may help you be better with women. But I can honestly tell you that some of the biggest players I have known who got the most girls weren't always anyone's ideal attractiveness. They didn't always have a lot of money. It was the way they presented themselves. And I'll give you the most extreme example. As a cousin of mine, he is now married to a very pretty girl, and I was kind of shocked when he hooked up with her and got engaged to her, because I'm like, wow, she's really good looking. Or at least some of my other family members said that. But then I had been around him enough to know that he was always a player. And this is, how do I put this nicely? You take morbidly obese and you add another 50 to 80 pounds of fat to that, and that would be him. He was around 6'2", 350 pounds. He did weightlift. He did play football in high school. I mean, he could rep out 275 on the bench, squat 400 pounds for a couple reps, but he was 350 pounds. And had he lost 100 pounds of fat, he still would be a little chubby. He was really big, but he was hilarious. He was confident. He would take his shirt off at parties and dance and make jokes. And I've seen him dance at parties with his shirt off. I always saw him picking up good-looking girls, and I even walked in on him once at a party, at a house party, having a threesome with 2 girls who were at least 7 out of 10s. So he had, by most standards, a morbidly hideous physique, and yet his confidence, his charisma, and his jokes, because he told jokes constantly. He probably could have been a comedian professionally. And that was able to overcome him having a terrible body and still get him girls, because he was confident, charismatic, and funny. Those things will get you girls more than a body will. And remember, having a nice body is just extra plumage to get your foot in the door. Nothing more, nothing less. Alright guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.